Sometimes the biggest unlock in your business is on the other side of a difficult conversation. What I see usually most people struggle with and why their cash gets constrained is if you're a business owner who's struggling to maintain the cash in their business or know how to use the cash they have to make more money and grow their business, this video is for you. So whether you're just starting or you're pretty seasoned and in the game, I promise you're going to find gems in this one. Hi, my name is Morgan Whalen. I'm a fractional CFO, and I work with small business owners every single day on problems just like this. The first part of this video, we're going to cover how to unclog the cash flow constraint that you might be having in your business. And then in part two, we'll talk about how to use that cash to make you more money and extremely wealthy. So let's go ahead and dive in with part one. So it usually comes down to one of four things. You either have price, cost of delivery, speed, and or LTV, so lifetime value. So we'll take apart each one of these. When you're in a business, typically it looks something like this. You have really three main areas of the business. You have your sales and marketing, which is to get new customers. You have your delivery, which could be one time or reoccurring depending on your business model. And then you have billing. The purchase happens right here when they get the sales and marketing and then it converts into a paying customer. To get someone to first take a step towards you, become a lead, and then eventually buy from you, usually what happens is you have to pay something called CAC, which is the cost to acquire a customer. So that's anyone on your sales team, marketing team, any technology, ad spend that you're using to drive traffic, then eventually have new customers coming into your business. You have CAC, and then you have delivery. And so delivery is usually cost of goods sold. So if you sell something like this pen on a marketplace, and let's just say it cost you $10 from the manufacturer, plus you have shipping, taxes, and any other fees. So let's say out the door it's $15, but then you sell it for $25. So all of your cost to then deliver it to the person's door, which is the $15, is your cost of goods sold. And then you're selling it for the $25. And so you make the difference between those two. You have CAC and you have cost of goods sold. What I see usually most people struggle with and why their cash gets constrained is when this event occurs and they have someone buy from them, they don't price this accordingly. So what should you price it at? You want to do CAC times 2 and your cost of goods sold, and you want to do that within the first 30 days. Why? Because if it takes longer, you don't have enough cash to go get a new customer. So the reason why you want to cover your cost that your business just incurred to get this first customer, and you want to be able to pay for the next one. That's why you do CAC times 2 plus your delivery cost. In an example, if your cost to acquire a customer was $200, and your cost of goods sold was say $100, then that is going to equal $500. You want to charge $500, and then maybe after that, if it's a reoccurring service, for example, you may drop the price down to like $300 for reoccurring payment. You may have $200 in setup fees or onboarding fees or whatever it is to cover all of those costs associated with getting your next customer. The second thing that we talked about is cost of delivery. So cost of delivery is the other end. So for most businesses, you have a service-based business. It's the cost of labor associated with delivering whatever your offer is. If you have someone who costs a lot of money, let's just say they're $3 signs worth of money per hour, and you have them doing something that a $1 per hour could do, then you want to try to offload as much of those things as possible to the lower hourly rate person. And so your cost of delivery can be brought down in a couple different ways. So offloading tasks to lower cost labor is a great way to do that. Another thing you do is automate or use technology to replace some of the work that you're doing or speed up some of the work that you're doing. The other thing that you could do is look to hire remote or offshore as well. So again, lower cost labor. So majority of the time, it's either price or cost of delivery. The third thing that it could be is speed. Again, so going back to the three main areas that we have sales and marketing, we have delivery, and then we have billing. If you get money over here and then you spend here and here, the idea is you want to try to condense these down as much as possible. So then that way, when you spend the money, you get the money back quicker. So you could do this a couple ways. You can shorten your sales and marketing funnel down. Can we look for ways to get people who first come in contact with us to buy from us quicker? Because then that turns over our money faster. Or can we look at, usually it takes us a week to deliver. Can we look to deliver in 3 days, 2 days? The other thing you can do is try to move up your billing. And so a lot of SaaS or software as a service companies do this, which is they give you a discount, 15%, 20%, if you buy a full year in advance. So they're pulling forward, they're billing a full year before they even have to deliver it. And their delivery is just software. So there's almost no cost there. So all they're really doing for most SaaS companies is trying to bring up the billing so they can go acquire more customers. One other thing that I wanted to hit on with the billing cycle and maybe moving it forward. So if you do have a business that is more of like a construction or an industry where it's typical to wait 30, 60, 90 days after a job's complete to then collect the rest of your cash, the goal would be, how do we move up our billing to be in line with expenses, ideally leading expenses. The hard part is to break industry norms. If you follow the norms, you're going to be like everyone else. And in certain industries, that means you're going to be a bank. So you don't want to do that. You want to set the standard up front. You want to be really, really clear on, this is how we do things. People will adjust naturally if you tell them, hey, no, this is the way it goes. Sometimes the biggest unlock in your business is on the other side of a difficult conversation. And so if you can have that difficult conversation and set the new standard or set the new expectations, it's going to help so much with alleviating whatever the constraint of your business is. That's the third one, speed. How can we reduce the main processes to get someone all the way across and then pay us? The last one that you have is LTV. And this stands for lifetime value. And the lifetime value of a customer just means the amount of money they spend with you over their lifetime. You can increase LTV by going from a one-time high fee service to a reoccurring service that may increase LTV given enough time. You could cross-sell, upsell, downsell. There's a lot of different ways to also increase the lifetime value of a customer. But what I typically see is whatever the core offer is, what most people are going to buy from you is, and then let's say you want to cross-sell them into other things, most people will find things to cross-sell that are at the same margin or lower because they're easier to sell. But that's not the goal in business, right? We want to increase the cash flow of the business, and then that way we can spend more to get more customers. We can give our team higher salaries than the rest of the market does. And you're just overall going to have more wiggle room to try more things and find other angles if you have the cash to deploy. And so there's so many benefits that come from being able to sell higher margin offers or items or products. When you're looking at LTV and maybe adding in a cross sell, look for things that increase the value and increase in margin. I like things that are digital because they cost pretty much nothing once you make it. So think of a course, think of a book, think of a PDF, think of a calculator, think of a tool that you can build and make. Once you build it, then you have no more cost of delivery. It's just getting people to buy it. So when you do that, when you have zero cost delivery things, you have pretty much all of its gravy at that point, 100% margins, and then that increases and help the business become more profitable and have more cash over time. Those are 4 ways to increase the cash of your business, the cash flow of your business. The next thing that you need to be able to do is figure out what to do with the cash. So when you have a profitable business, there are some things that are mandatory. Number 1 is taxes. So you need to start setting aside anywhere between 25 to 35% of your profits each month or quarter, however you want to look at it, in taxes. Now, when you first start your business, you pay annually for taxes. When you start owing more in taxes, I believe it's over $1,000 currently, then you have to pay quarterly estimates. Make sure you're setting aside a certain amount of profits. You can definitely put this into a separate account if you want to, so you just don't touch it. And so the other thing that you can do is start saving. A savings account is really just a way to reduce the risk of the business. So if you think about this, we want to put as many layers as possible between where you are and running a business and game over. And so how do we put as many layers as possible? Well, one, you can just run off the profits of your business, right? And that is a layer in and of itself. So if there's hard times that hits, and let's say you had 20% margin, then, okay, we went down to 10%. Okay, we're still profitable. We don't have to fire anyone. We don't have to cut any costs. We may need to pay attention to make sure we don't dip down any lower, but you still have the wiggle room. Okay, well, what if all the profits get lost, right? We run into catastrophe, all the profits are gone. Well, then that's when you want to have a savings account. And then, okay, let's say we burn through all the savings account. Okay, then that's when you would take on debt, or you would do owner contributions. And then the last thing that you would do is have, game over, right? If you tap out all those things and you have nothing left, that is game over. So we want to stack as many things in between running our business and game over as possible to reduce the amount of risk. And so typically savings, you want to save around 20% of your profits in savings. Now, I'm going to get into a caveat here is if you have debt, then you just want to set aside for taxes. You want to have maybe a minimum cash balance in the bank, and then the rest is going towards debt because it's just such a drag on your business to pay all this interest and have all these extra expenses. Now, the next thing is after savings is we have distribution. And a distribution is just part of the benefits of owning a business. So if you are an LLC that has S Corp election status, or if you're just an S Corp, then you're eligible for distributions. What are distributions? Well, distributions, think of them just like dividends for a public company, but it's essentially giving some of the profits back to shareholders as kind of a reward for investing into the company in the first place. Well, if you own 100% of the business, you are the shareholder and the owner, like you're wearing multiple hats. And so part of what you're going to get from the business is a salary for what you're doing on a daily basis. But then every once in a while, especially when you have profits, you could start taking distributions on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. The great thing about distributions is you don't get self-employment tax, which means you get to bypass 15.3% of taxes each time you take a distribution. So they're great, but you want to treat them just like a public business would, and you don't want to abuse them. So there are rules around how much distribution you can take, and you can't just take your whole salary as a distribution, right? The IRS has guidance around that. So you can't do that. And again, this can vary. If you're a business owner who's like, I'm really bullish on my business and I want to keep on reinvesting in it, then you may take a lower distribution every month or quarter or year because you want to keep the cash in the business and keep reinvesting. If you have maybe a lot of debt and you need the extra money, then you might take more of a distribution. So it's really dependent on your goals, what you do here. But I would say it could be anywhere from 10% all the way up to about 30%. Again, you may even go a little bit higher, depends on your unique situation. But you do want to take some chips off the table. As you grow your business, even if you're the most bullish, you still want to take a little bit off the table to reinvest into other assets outside of your business and or pay down debt or go on a vacation, whatever it may be for you, right? You want to enjoy a little bit now is my point. And so after you have distributions, and again, if you don't have any debt, then the last thing that you do is you invest into growth in your business. Now, what I usually get asked is, okay, well, what do I invest to grow my business? Well, typically you want the things that have the highest ROI and they have the lowest risk. That's what you're looking for. That's the gold. Now, this can look different for your company. So I'm going to give a couple different examples and then have some discernment here and apply what you need to. Ideally, low risk things in nature are more things that are more guaranteed. Like if we put $1 here, we know very high likelihood that we're going to get however much back, $1.50 back, $2 back, $3 back, whatever it is. The more uncertainty you have around, we're going to spend this money and I have no idea what's going to happen, then the more riskier it is in nature. We want to start with the things that are guaranteed in the highest return. And a lot of times that's going to be things that you're already doing. So that's where you typically want to start. So if you're running ads, then it might just be putting more into that. If you ran a campaign that did really well last quarter, then you may want to run it again because you know it works already. So you have a lower risk associated with that. Another thing that could be really, really high return on investment, low risk is investing into your team. At a certain point in any business, the team becomes like one of the highest priorities because it's all about the culture. It's all about the people to drive the actions, the behaviors, the processes that make the business run. I would say almost always that investing in your team will produce very, very good fruit, right? Because they're going to look at it as a way for them to grow, a way for them to learn, to get better maybe at their skill or leadership, whatever it is that you're training them on. As you pour more into them, they're more likely to have a positive experience in the organization. Another one that we have is equipment. So if you run a job or if you have a company that you need a lot of equipment like cars, machines, tools. So right now, if you're borrowing those things, it may be a lower cost over time just to purchase them. So you're like, hey, we're going to need these tools for the next 10 years, 20 years. So we might as well just buy them now. But you may have not had the cash before, but now you do. So that's another example of something that you can do. One-time projects can be really good here as well. If you have cash and you're like, well, what do we do with it? How do we deploy it? You may not be the expert at everything. So you may bring in an expert and say, hey, can you, fix our landing pages? Can you help us with ads? Can you help us with content? Can you train our sales team? These one-time projects where people can come in, make a course for you, create a series for you, do whatever you need them to do, can be very, very helpful. And again, can produce a really good ROI. And a lot of times it's either time savings, process improvement, or it's generating more revenue or cutting costs for the company. And again, if you are looking at these different growth investment opportunities, now that you have the cash, I would challenge you on this, which is how do we focus on the one project or the one initiative that's going to generate the highest ROI and the least amount of risk? And if you can't nail it down to one, then you probably don't have a good enough understanding of all the options that are available to you and the risks that are involved. Because it's a lot harder to get four things right and your attention is split as opposed to just one thing that you're focusing on. And again, for one-time projects, someone might say, as an example, oh, we need a website facelift, or we need new furniture in the office. Well, okay, those are things that may need to get replaced over time, but are they directly related to revenue? A lot of times a website facelift isn't really going to translate into that much more revenue being generated for the company. Same thing with office furniture. That has no impact on generating more revenue for the company. Although some of those things are necessary and they have to be done over time, those are typically not the highest priority. And if you have a limited amount of cash, again, you want to put it onto the things that you feel like are going to help the company grow the fastest. These are growth initiatives. The other thing that you can consider as well is, I would say you can have up to 20% into new initiatives. As much as I say, do the things that are guaranteed, there is a little bit of risk that you have to take in business because you want to try new things out, see if there's a better way. Totally understand. And so if you are going to, have a pool of money, call it $10,000, maybe $2,000 can be spent on trying something new. And as you get bigger, then that percent just increases over time. So you're like, oh, well, if we try this contractor, will it work? If we outsource this part of our process and another company does it, will that help, streamline things? You always want to be testing. You always want to be trying for sure. But a majority of the time you want to, after you get out of the testing phase in your business, you want to just double down on what already works. But you do want to keep a little bit of cash open for something that is new. If you are going to invest into something, right, and you're like, well, I want to open up a new location. Well, a new location is a little different here because if you want to go to a new location, there's a build out cost. Let's say it's $100,000. Would be for the initial or one-time costs, but then the other part needs to come from your profits. And so it's important to know, like, where do your profits need to be at? Let's say you have a profit right now of 10% in your company. And if you brought on these new expenses outside of the one-time costs, if you have these reoccurring expenses now in your business, now your profit goes from, call it 10% to 5%. Well, that may be a little too close for comfort, right? Maybe you wait till your profit margin gets up to 15 and then you can spend down with these new reoccurring costs and get back down to 10%. One-time cost would be associated with the cash in the bank that you're saving for those growth opportunities. And a reoccurring costs, you need to bake into your profit and in your P&L every single month. So can you pay that expense every single month and still be at the margin that you want to be at? So that's the difference you want to look at when you're doing initiatives that have one-time cost and recurring cost. If you have a new hire or you want to hire more people, that's where you need to look at your profits to see, can we afford that? If it's a one-time thing like a project or a brand redesign, something like that, that's a one-time cost. And that's more in your growth account that you're looking to see, can we afford that? Capital allocation is one of the most important things you can do inside your business, especially as it continues to grow. And so knowing which initiatives to take on and which ones not to becomes a huge thing. I hope this is helpful. I hope you were able to have some takeaways from here, be able to apply it to your business, your situation, to be able to maintain higher margins, more cash, and eventually grow to the level that you want to. So that's all for this. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want more content like this in the future. I'll catch you on the next one.